Hi guys, it's Mark here from Shotkit.com. Today I have a video interview for you with a young lady from Dallas, Texas, who goes by the name of Dixie Dixon. Now Dixie's one of only 20 of the Nikon ambassadors in the world, so we're very happy to have her talk to us today. So over to you, Dixie in Texas.
Hey, I'm Dixie Dixon. I'm a commercial fashion and advertising photographer, currently based in Dallas, but I travel worldwide, shooting for brands, ad agencies, magazines, things of that nature. And really, I think I love bringing brands' visions to life in my imagery and really just telling stories.
Okay, awesome. Predominantly, I understand you're a fashion photographer, um, but you mentioned quite a few things there, including like nature and portraits, other things like that. Are you really diversifying this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that's really popular right now in the commercial industry is this whole lifestyle, sort of slice of life type work. So I've been shooting a lot of that for Nikon, and really just kind of honing that lens flare look that I really love. So it's been good. It's been a really busy year. So I'm super, super grateful.
Okay, great. Could you tell us a little bit how you first got into, let's say, your fashion photography? I guess you're best known for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I Googled fashion photography study abroad while I was in college. And one program came up through Syracuse University. It was my junior year. And so I applied for the program and I got in. I went over to London and Prague, actually to study with a world-renowned fashion photographer. So that's, I think, when I fell in love with fashion advertising sort of things. And I have been hooked ever since. It has been quite the addiction.
Right, yeah.
um, yeah, and I think it really was a great starting point because it sort of opened my world up as to when a team of really great creatives come together, they can really create magic in the lens, and you can control so much more in fashion photography than you can in like photojournalism. So I love being able to control the moments and create imagery.
Okay, awesome. So did you go straight from zero to fashion photography, or was there a stage in between where you were messing around with cameras?
Yeah, there was definitely, well, I mean, fashion photography isn't something that you can just, I mean, it takes a while to break into. So obviously when I was starting out, I graduated in, 2007. So that whole year, my last year of college, I was building my business and shooting everything. From weddings to portraits, products, like anything that I could get my hands on to pay the bills, I was shooting. So it took a couple years of doing that, to pay the bills while I was also shooting fashion work on the side, like test work, and trying to build my fashion portfolio in the process. And then eventually when I built that and I started showing that to potential clients, like boutiques and things of that nature, and then modeling agencies would hire me to shoot their new faces. And it sort of grew organically from there, like building into bigger clients and stuff like that.
Okay, awesome. And you're a Nikon ambassador. What does first of all, how did you become one?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I know they consider a lot of photographers, and I actually met with them a couple years ago. It's always been a dream of mine to work with Nikon, and so I met with them a couple years ago, and the meeting went really well, and I kept them updated consistently on my work, on my new imagery. And eventually, when I had done a couple gigs for them, and then the ambassador program launched, and they knew my work really well, and they wanted me to be a part of the program. So I'm one of the sort of emerging ambassadors in the program. There's a lot of people like Joe McNally and Corey Rich who have been doing it for years, like amazing, amazing photographers. So it's a real honor, I think, to be able to work with them. They're a great company.
Yeah, right. And what does that actually entail for people who are not aware of the ambassador program? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's a broad range of photographers, and we all have different specialties, and we go and speak at different events all over the world about photography and about Nikon, and then they'll also consider us for different jobs that they come up with for the different cameras that are coming out. So we're able to shoot for those different cameras, and really just any way that furthers their brand. We're kind of like a link between Nikon and consumers, I guess you could say. As far as, you know, the gear, we're always able to use the gear when it first comes out, and so we're able to spread the word.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like a camera lover's dream. It sounds like you've got access to all the latest stuff that comes out. I assume you're shooting with the D4S right now?
Yes, actually I'm here.
Oh, okay, great. So yeah, if we move on to the gear a little bit, I assume that you know quite a lot about Nikon and you're very familiar with all the different lineup. So I just mentioned the D4S there. Do you want to just give us like a first-hand impression of how you're finding it? And I understand you shot with the D4 before that, so maybe you could give a little bit about you know what you feel that's different, and yeah, just tell us about it.
I've barely gotten to use it. I've shot with it just a little bit, and I found that the focus is freaking amazing. Like, it is like sharp, and it's just super fast. Like sports shooters, this is a dream camera. So it's really great for shooting movement and things of that nature. So I think it's a really great addition for me for shooting lifestyle photography, sort of in the moment, capturing those action photos. Really great.
Okay.
I haven't gotten to test out the video yet, but I'm really excited because I've heard amazing things about it.
All right, great. For things, for stuff that you shoot that's more static, say perhaps fashion or something that's a bit more controlled in that environment where you can, you know, get the person to pose and hold it. Do you think that a D4 or D4S is advantageous as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's one of those cameras that's great all around for any type of shooting, really. I mean, it's a bigger body style than, say, the D800, but I think I like how it feels. You know how you grab a camera and there's just like a feeling you get when you hold it? It's just a really good feeling. I tend to like the bigger body styles as opposed to the smaller ones for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
They're heavy. They just feel right.
Yeah, something about the balance. I know what you mean. So it is a big camera. When you look at the dimensions and you weight, you're like, whoa, but then you pick it up and then something about Nikon's, the ergonomics and the balance, it just, yeah, that's why I shoot Nikon actually, is because I picked up a D700. Yeah, I picked up a D700 back in the day, and I think I picked up a 5D Mark II, and I just loved where all the buttons were and how it felt in my hand, and that's what took me on the Nikon journey, I guess. That was the sole thing. But yeah, yeah, right, okay, great. So what other cameras do you have around you there in your Nikon arsenal?
I also have the D800, which when I need huge file sizes, I'll shoot with that. A lot of controlled fashion stuff in studio and on location actually too.
Okay.
So it's amazing. You got to be aware, like when I shoot beauty with it at studio, you can see literally every pore. So you got to be aware of that and be prepared to do some retouching.
So it can work against you.
Amazing, but you got to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I understand. And also I saw you got a couple of, or you had one Nikon DF in your camera bag there as well.
I do. I love that camera. I had the old Nikon FG, and now the DF. It's like I put the two together. It's really neat because they have that old style feel. And I feel like, as cliche as it sounds, it does make you slow down and really think about the images that you're shooting, because you really have to dial and do all of that before you actually make the pictures. So I think it's good. I think it kind of slows me down and makes me think about what I'm composing and what I'm creating. So it's kind of like my personal project camera.
Right, okay. And did you film, did you shoot film then back in the day, or have you come straight to, you mentioned a film camera there, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I could just remember clocking so many hours in the dark room. That's when I think I fell in love with it. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. I don't know when you cut out exactly, but yeah, I think that it really allowed me to figure out how to get the keys right in camera. And then when I I switched to digital, it was like amazing because I could suddenly see the images pop up instantly. So I think digital really allows us to learn at a very faster rate than film did, because we can see everything instantly. So it's really nice. It's really nice if you're trying to master your craft, you can master it really quickly.
Sure. And do you shoot film nowadays, or do you find that you don't have enough time?
Every once in a while. Sometimes when I do personal projects, I'll shoot both film and digital, just to sort of get back to basics and remember why I fell in love with it in the first place.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So if you could just mention a few of the lenses that you take to a shoot. So say tomorrow, actually we could use something, a real life example. You said that you had a shoot for Disney a couple of weeks ago, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
maybe you could just tell us a bit about what the shoot involved and then what kit you brought with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope I can talk about it
Oh,
though.
right, okay. You want to try something safer?
I think I can, but I'm not for sure. I should probably ask.
Okay then. Well, how about another shoot that you know you can talk about? How
I just
about,
did it on Monday.
okay, what was
Yeah.
that?
It was a personal project actually that I did on Monday with this really rad old Mustang. It's called the Mach 1. So, I had a beautiful model posing with the car, but we didn't want to create those normal cliche girl car pictures. So we created some really beautiful moody shots, and I brought with me, I actually just got a new lens that I love, and it is, let's see, it's the new 35 millimeter 1.4,
Yep.
and I had the 35 millimeter f2, like it's the old film lens, but this new one is so sharp. So I use it a lot when I'm shooting lifestyle and like group shots, and that sort of thing. So I really love it. It's a great wide angle lens if you want to get the whole scene in the picture. So I
Okay.
use that a lot to get the whole car in it, in those images. And then I always take the 85. I don't know if you want me to show you these on screen.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, so it's the 85 1.4. I try to use mostly fixed lenses, they're really, really sharp, and the bokeh in the back is really beautiful, when the subject's really in focus and then the background falls out of focus really beautifully. So I use this lens a lot on Monday, and it's just a really great all-around portrait lens. Then, let's see, I have the 50, which I use pretty often, and it's also a 1.4, super, super fast. And then I just recently got the 58 millimeter. Have you heard of this lens?
Yeah, I bought that about 3 weeks ago. There's a guy on my site who does reviews called Jay, who actually he wrote such an awesome review on this lens, and it's an expensive lens. But I read it and I was like, wow, god damn, you've sold it to me, and this is my own site, so I bought it straight away. So I know I'm a sucker. I've like created this monster because I see all this amazing, gear that everyone has, and I end up buying
Yeah.
it. Yeah, right. So, but yeah, as you're saying, that it's awesome.
Every time I look at the site and what other photographers' gear is, it's like, ooh, I want to try that out. It just opens the world up.
Exactly. Yeah. So, how are you finding that 58?
I love it. I love it. And I found that a lot of people don't understand why it's 58 as opposed to a 50, but apparently the 58 is what our eye actually sees on a normal basis. Everyone used to think it was the 50, but it's actually 58 millimeters is what the eye sees apparently. But it's great. It's really, really sharp, and I find it using it more than the 50 now. So it's a good, really great focal length. So,
Yeah, interesting. It's nice to have a 1.4 that's so light as well, isn't it? Compared to the 85 and the 35, it's got that plastic body, and it just seems really, it's a nice balance on the camera.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's funny, on a shoot a few weeks ago, I was doing, I used the 200 millimeter f2. Have you ever used that lens?
No, I haven't.
It's massive, but it is so tack sharp, and it blurs the background like the most beautiful I've ever seen. So that's now on my wish list. I'm like, I gotta have that. I think it's like
Oh my God, yeah, F2, that's crazy.
You gotta use a tripod 'cause it's really heavy. I mean, I need to start lifting weights, so I'm gonna start using that lens.
Yeah, on the D4, that's for sure.
Totally.
Okay.
So that's on my wish. But instead, right now, I'm using the older 180. I know I always talk about this lens, but I use it a lot for my headshots. I
Okay.
like to use longer focal lenses for headshots.
Right. Can you just hold that up a bit higher? Like, can you just hold that up right next to your face? Yeah, yeah. So I've never seen one of those before, actually. So that's a 180 f2 point. Is that an f2.8?
Uh-huh. That's
Okay.
right. It's funny because my dad passed this lens down to me. I was still shooting film, and I started using it along with a 50 millimeter. I had an old 50 that was for the film camera, and I just loved it because when I shoot headshots, it just flattens the face really beautifully. So I try to use longer lenses when shooting headshots, so there's like no distortion or anything on the edges. So like I'd never use a 35 millimeter or something like that for a headshot,
Sure.
just because it makes the forehead look huge and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. So just to give people an idea, perhaps some people aren't aware of the focal lengths and everything. So a 200 millimeter, for example, you've got that painting on your wall in the background there. So say you're sitting where you are at the computer, you're using a 200 millimeter. Would you say that that's about the distance away that you'd have the subject?
Yeah, maybe a little bit closer. A little bit closer, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Maybe where this here. Well, if I was only cropping, that's cropped about 3/4.
Yeah.
I would stand here. You're right. Now, if I was shooting headshots, I would be a little bit closer. But
Okay.
yeah, good working distance because I don't like to be up in people's personal bubble
Yeah.
because that just makes me feel intimidated. So I like to kind of have a good working space between my subjects.
Yeah, sure. But you're still close. You're obviously still close enough to like shout like behind the camera and just say, "Hey, can you do this,
Yeah,
that?"
exactly. Yeah, once you get 400 millimeter and those really, really long things, I feel like you lose a connection.
Yeah, right, definitely. Um, and if we just talk about that shot that you've got, the opening shot on your website, and one that I probably see most often when people talk about you. So it's a girl, I think, getting out of a helicopter, and there's another helicopter above her.
Yeah,
Yeah, was that a
absolutely.
is that a composite, or is that exactly how the scene was?
It's so funny. It actually was not photoshopped. It was or composited. I shot it exactly how that was, which was a challenge. As you can imagine. It was actually for a best-selling author named Payne Harrison, and he wanted me to bring to life his book. And the book was named Eurostorm. And one of the scenes from that book had these two helicopters, and so I figured we had to do that scene because it just sounded way too cool. And like I said, I like to shoot things in camera. So basically, they put me on a headset, and I'm just laying on the ground, just looking up towards the model. And then I'm having to direct on the headset this other helicopter like into the frame. And it was challenging because I had to get it in between the two blades.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't want it to intersect with those blades. So the helicopter is like hovering in the frame, and I'm trying to direct the model while directing the helicopter. So as you can imagine, it was a crazy experience. But I put it on a continuous shot setting and ended up getting the shot. And I remember looking back at the author, and he was just like in awe at the whole situation. We made see his whole book come to life in an image, so it was a really neat experience for sure.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, it was all.
And I guess you're shooting on quite a long lens there to get the compression to make that other helicopter seem closer. Is that right?
You know what? I think it looks that way maybe because of the lighting. Um, but I believe I used a 24 to 70 lens.
Okay.
So somehow it still has nice compression to it.
Yeah, it does.
70, yeah.
All right, so that helicopter was really quite close to you. Well, you could feel the
It
air
was
from it.
very close. It was very loud too. It was very hard, but it was fun.
Okay, great. Okay, I've just got a couple more questions for you, if you don't mind. Yeah, a couple of the photos that you sent through when I asked for your showcase photos are a little bit different in style. So you're talking more about your lifestyle work, how you like that kind of dreamy lens flary look that's getting quite popular now. Just for someone who's new to photography and they're trying to recreate that look, even pros find it quite difficult to create a decent lens flare in camera where you're not washing out the sensor with all that light, but you're still creating that dreamy look. Can you just talk a bit about first of all, let's say what equipment you use for if you wanted a lens flare shot of my face right now?
Yeah, well, you got good window light behind you. So there is kind of an art to creating lens flare, and I have found that I use the older lenses when I want lens flare, and the reason is that the older film lenses don't have the nano coating, so you get more flare, which is kind of interesting. And obviously don't use a lens hood because you want the flare that's hitting the lens, obviously. And then sometimes I've had to even create a lens flare look in an office, which sounds really weird. I was doing a shoot for Virgin, one of Richard Branson's companies, and they wanted lens flare in all of the shots, even though they were inside, which wouldn't have made sense, but it was kind of a cool look. I was kind of excited because I had ended up creating that with strobe. So I basically put the strobe and faced it right at my lens, and then I put Vaseline on the filter. So you put the filter on top of the lens, put Vaseline just on the very bottom of it, and then it creates even more of that dreamy effect. So I have these different techniques for creating more and more lens flare depending on how much they're looking for. But I like to create it organically and with natural light the best. I think that's the easiest way. But you can create it with strobes too.
Okay, awesome. So you're using the Vaseline. That's a real old school film technique, isn't it? Back in the day when they had nothing, nothing else to play with. Okay.
Everyone wondered why I have Vaseline in my camera.
Yeah, right. I'm sure it's for that reason.
But it's all about the art.
Okay. All right. So you said you're using an older manual lens, a manual focus lens, just to get that kind of there's no nano coating on the lens, so it's just glass in effect, isn't it? It's just right. Okay.
They aren't necessarily manual though, that don't have the nano coating as well.
Oh, okay.
So these autofocus. They're kind of in between. It went from manual to automatic, still in film, then to the digital lenses. So they're just the film lenses that are automatic.
Oh, I see.
That's what I use.
Okay. What have you got any of the lenses there, or could you just tell us which ones they are?
Yeah, the 180 is one of them.
Okay.
The 180. Yeah, and then I don't have them with me, but the older 50mm lens, like the 51.8, it's a smaller size than this 50.
Yep.
Is an older film version of it. And it'll say whether it has nano coating or not on the website, so you can kind of look.
Okay.
See when they're, yeah.
Interesting. And then just in terms of the technique, so how you manage to get enough of the light into the camera without, like I said before, without destroying the image with too much light.
Yeah. A lot of times I'll so you backlight it obviously with the sun, and then I'll add a reflector in the front to sort of bounce some of that light back into their faces so it's not too blown out. You still get some of the pretty highlights, and you get the catch light in their eyes as well. So that's kind of how I still get some beautiful contrast in the image. And then when I go into the raw, I shoot everything raw, I'll bump the contrast a lot. Usually requires you to bump the contrast a lot more than direct light for some reason.
Okay, great. And how do you find the D4 and the D4S's files in retaining that detail in the shadows and in the highlights and the contrast as well?
Yeah, I'm pretty amazed. Pretty amazed by how much detail is there. Even if I accidentally shoot something a little bit overexposed, you can bring it back in post, which is a really amazing tool. Can kind of save the day sometimes when you're shooting and you're in the moment and you don't realize you're overexposing a little bit. So that happens. It's pretty amazing the leeway we have today to sort of make mistakes and learn from them, or fix things a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't about the image too much, but you still have some leeway there. I tend to shoot everything just a tiny bit overexposed as opposed to underexposed, because I like to kind of clean up those skin tones. Usually people's faces look a little bit better, a little bit overexposed than underexposed.
Okay,
So
awesome.
that.
Yeah, great little tip there. Okay, you mentioned the Vaseline in your handbag that you're assuring us that's for the lens use. Do you have any other like? You've got the Vaseline, right? So do you have any other quirky tips that you could share with us?
Um, quirky tips. I don't know if I have any other quirky tips. I use a light meter in the studio. A lot of people don't use light meters these days.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you want to just tell us a bit about Light Meter? I don't actually use one because I don't, not that I don't think I need one. I don't actually know how to use one. So yeah, could you just give us a like a 1 minute rundown? Dixie's tips on how to use a light meter.
Yeah, basically this is just the old Sekonic light meter that I got when I first started. And when shooting strobes in the studio, you don't really know what it's going to look like until you click the shutter until it flashes. So I use it to create a starting point for my images. So for instance, if I want that high key backdrop, I'll usually shoot it, the backdrop, I'll meter it at f11, and then actually shoot it at f8 so that the background is just overexposed by one stop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure the whole background all meters. So I'll meter all over the background to make sure it's all f11 in the back, and then f8 on the model's face. So it's kind of backwards, the metering system is, because you think that the background will be darker at f11, but it's actually lighter. So it's kind of confusing, and you have to do it a few times in studio, but it really is helpful for me to create that starting point when metering strobes. Now outside, I usually just use my camera and I look at the back, and if it looks good, I go with it. I don't usually look at the histograms. If I like it in camera, I just go with it. I'm not super technical usually when I work, unless I have to be. So.
Okay. And are you when you're outside, are you spot metering or are you matrix or?
Um, you know, I really don't meter when I shoot outside.
Okay.
I mean, usually I can kind of guess. Now I've gotten to where I'm pretty good at guessing what it is, what the aperture and shutter speed should be. So I'm usually pretty close once I take a picture, and then if it's a little bright, I'll just dial it down because I can see everything there on the back of the screen.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm getting. So I'd like to check it before I start shooting to make sure everything's spot on, and then I'll keep shooting without, having to keep looking at the back of the camera.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Great. So.
One other tip: I always back up on set. I've learned the hard way. I always back up to these G drives. Have you used these?
Do you want to just hold it up a bit higher?
Oh yes.
Cool. No, I haven't. I've got something similar, but how's that going for you?
It really well because I have the G dock. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It's basically. Do I have it? Actually, I have it here. It is this guy here. Can you see it?
Yeah. Cool.
Basically a dock where you can put in the drives.
I'll just hold it a little bit higher. Sorry, Dixie. Just where you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
You can
Okay.
pop in drives here.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and you can pop in two, and so it's Thunderbolt. So usually I'll back up my images to this drive, and then it creates two duplicate backups on set while I'm shooting, so I know that I'm not losing anything or losing any images. Because I've lost memory cards in the sand before.
Oh,
I've
no.
lost different things. So I had
Wow.
to learn the hard way. So now I'm always backing up to this, and I have those two duplicate backups, so I know everything is safe and secure.
Awesome.
So I think as photographers, we have to we learn the hard way, should I say.
Yeah, definitely. So are you putting a memory card into that G drive? Is that right?
Usually I'm shooting tethered to a computer.
I see, right.
But if not, I'm using a card reader to duplicate from the card to the G dock. So you still need a card reader. It doesn't have a card reader in it. But,
Oh, okay.
it's simple.
Right, so you need the computer to be connected to the G dock. It's actually a peripheral. I got you, right.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, let's just wind this up by ending on something just maybe that'll, what's the word, encourage and motivate like a new photographer. You're still super young, like you don't need to tell us how old you are, but you're in your 20s, obviously. The last thing that I read about you, you're out of college, but I think that was an article that was, from a few years ago. Let's just pretend that you are. But yeah, you're in your early 20s. You're a Nikon ambassador. You're killing your game. And can you just give a little bit of advice for, like, say, an aspiring person, a photographer who's just out of college, let's say, if they want to, they see your work and they're like, hey, I want to do some of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind words. So I would say maybe assist other photographers in the industry. So really get involved in the industry. I've only had photography jobs, even starting out in high school. I mean, I was a Little League photographer, I was a yearbook photographer, wedding photographer, portrait photographer. I've had every job in the industry, I feel like. So any way that you can get experience in the industry before you actually jump into owning your own business, the better. Because you can shoot really great images, but you really have to know how to market yourself and really brand yourself. And I think assisting allows you to sort of see both sides, especially if you get to be good friends with whoever you're assisting. They'll kind of show you the ins and outs of the industry. And then I'd also say, while you're assisting, go out and shoot your own personal work and really try to build a portfolio of stuff that you love to shoot. So don't get pigeonholed into shooting something that just pays the bills. Really shoot what you love, and eventually you're going to find an audience that you can sell your images to. I think a lot of people, they wind up shooting something they don't love, like weddings. If they're not passionate about shooting weddings, then you don't have to shoot that. You just got to find the right audience for your imagery. Sometimes it takes a little while, it may take a couple of years, but there will be a right audience for every kind of photographer. So just shoot what you love, I think, is the main thing. Gosh, what else? I don't know. I guess set goals for yourself, like 5-year goals. I create a vision board every year. It's basically a board of where I want to be. So I'm putting magazine cutouts on this board of different goals that I have, whether it be photography goals or maybe I want to work out on a daily basis or just all these things. I put it on a board. And usually by the end of the year, I've accomplished all those goals on that board. So I try to keep that very current, and it kind of helps me stay focused.
Awesome.
That sums it up.
Yeah, you sound super motivated. The mood board, or sorry, what did you call it? The inspiration board? No?
Yeah, mood board's great too. I call it both. I don't even vision board, mood board.
Vision board. There you go. Vision. That's awesome. All right, Dixie. It's been really fun talking to you. Yeah, you're obviously very enthusiastic about what you do, and it comes across, and I think it's great. And thank you so much for your time and your tips and everything. Yeah, if you've got any last words, or I think, have you said everything?
I think so. I mean, obviously, my link to my website will be on there, I'm guessing. So
Definitely.
I think it's good. Thank you so much. I love your site. Keep it up. I'm really, I'll get lost in it and start looking at everyone else's when I do that.
Thanks so much, Dixie. It's been great talking to you. If you're ever in Sydney, then yeah, then drop me a line, and yeah, it'd be great to meet up with you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Awesome.